Yeah, and when I think of the solutions that are usually, if millions and millions and millions of dollars are spent to lobby the government to do, put a law in place to have some sort of moral code that people have to follow. We haven't changed anybody's mind. We haven't changed anybody's heart or attitude towards it. We've just put a punishment in place for somebody to break it. But the other thing is they usually don't solve the problem.
Yeah, well, it's true.
It's usually just some way of putting more power structure in place that will end up usually with a lot of unintended consequences that now it's hard to fix because you've got a bureaucracy that's now in the way. And so when I think of legislating morality, it's often that, okay, what do you do to actually solve the problem? Because having a few more government workers that are making decisions usually isn't, I can't actually think of a thing that's been put in place that's actually solved the problem that they say. And then the issue is, oh, we just need more money. We just need more money. We just need more money. And at the end of the day, you haven't changed anybody's heart. You haven't changed anybody's mind.
One of the problems, well, there's two that come to mind. You've really highlighted one of the problems, and that's intrinsic change. And so a friend of mine who is a police officer retired after 30 years of work. And he said when he retired, he had to enforce 3 times as many laws as he had to enforce 30 years ago. And so what the government will tend to do is that they in order to punish whatever they think is evil, if the people don't change, then they have to introduce more laws. And of course, the people are creative, so they figure out ways around those laws, loopholes and so forth. So then they pass more laws to plug those loopholes and those gaps over there. And then people become even more creative and figure out new ways. So then they pass even more laws. And this is why, in general, as a population drifts away from faith in God, they drift toward faith in government. And with that comes the obligation the government feels then is to make people behave. And so you will have, on the one hand, 2 laws given by God: love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. But then the government tries to flesh that out with many hundreds of laws that don't count the first one. So without the work of God in your life, you're going to need intrinsic motivation, and the government will provide that. So that's problem number one, is never-ending increase in laws. And they don't do anything. Like, I'm thinking right now, some of the politicians, one is when it says they're going to ban handguns in Toronto because there are gang members shooting one another. And I'm thinking, well, if there's a demand for, let's say, illegal drugs, we have seen already that there will be creative ways to meet that demand. And it's the same thing here. What the government really needs to do is to change people's hearts. No, that's not the role of government. God never expected government to change people's hearts. That is an intrinsic change that happens in our relationship with God. Because people will, if their hearts aren't changed, they're just going to do what they want to satisfy the demand. Creatively, intellectually, it's just going to happen. The second problem with expecting the government to solve problems of whatever sort is highlighted and illustrated by a news item that was on one of our major new networks several years ago. They were looking at our Medicare system here in Canada, and they said that approximately half of all our federal taxes that we pay to the federal government goes to healthcare. But each level of government has to get paid out of your income tax. So the department that collects the income tax needs to be paid. Then the federal government, the Department of Finance, the Department of Health, and then they give that money to the provinces, government and their provincial government levels need to get paid, the Department of Health, for example, such that they said out of every dollar that you give to the government for Medicare, for medical assistance, medical care, 79 cents goes to paying the various levels of bureaucracy. Only 21 cents gets to the actual clinics and hospitals. So yes, you can look to the government to solve our problems, but it'll revolve two things. Number one is a massive increase in laws. Number two is a horrendous inefficient use of the money that working people will earn in their own, trying to provide livings for their families. And that's why often people think that organizations that are funded by people that are more conservative are so flush with cash. They aren't really. Like, I don't know of any, but the appearance is there. It's simply because when you make a donation to, let's say, a Christian charity, whatever, a good one will typically, it's the opposite. You'll see about 85% of your dollar go actually to what needs to be gone to, and maybe like 14% or 15 going just to support the overhead, the office rentals and machines, equipment, that sort of thing.